most people think of courage, they think of something dramatic. A person running into a burning building. A soldier walking into danger. Someone standing up in front of a crowd and saying something that changes the room. Big, visible, unmistakable courage. And those things are real. They are real courage. But tonight, I want to talk about a different kind. The kind that doesn't look like much from the outside. The kind that other people might not even notice. The kind that requires, in some ways, even more than the dramatic kind. I want to talk about quiet courage. Hi, friends. Welcome back to English with Moon. I am so glad you are here tonight. Quiet courage looks like getting out of bed on a day when you don't want to. It looks like going back to therapy after you stopped, because you know you need it, even though starting again is embarrassing and hard. It looks like saying, "I love you" first, when you are not sure it will be returned. It looks like leaving a situation that everyone around you thinks is fine. A job, a relationship, a city, a way of living. Because you know, quietly, inside yourself, that it is not fine for you. It looks like asking for help when you have always been the person who helps others. It looks like trying again after you have failed publicly, while the awareness of the last failure is still fresh. It looks like being honest about how you are when the easy answer, the one everyone wants to hear, is "I'm fine." It looks like forgiving someone, not because they asked, not because they deserved it, but because you decided, privately, that you were done paying the price for something that was not your fault. It looks like choosing very quietly to stay in a hard relationship, in a difficult season, in a commitment that is costing you something, because leaving would be easier and staying is the right thing. It looks like the moment before you say the difficult truth, when everything in you wants to swallow it again. And then you say it anyway. None of these things look like courage from the outside, but from the inside, they take everything. I want to tell you about a woman named Priya. Priya had been living with anxiety for most of her adult life. The kind that doesn't show. She was high-functioning, capable, organized, the person at work who got things done. No one would have known, looking at her, that every meeting, every social event, every new situation was something she was navigating with enormous effort. She had learned to manage it alone. She had built her life around it, quietly, in ways that made it bearable. For years, she told herself, "I'm handling it. I don't need help." And then one morning, she woke up, and she simply couldn't continue managing it alone anymore. She made an appointment with a doctor. She sat in the waiting room for 40 minutes, feeling more afraid than she had felt in years. She walked in, sat down, and said, "I think I need help with my anxiety." 7 words. Nobody saw her say them. There was no applause. There was no moment of public recognition. But Priya told me that it was the bravest thing she had ever done. That saying those words out loud, admitting that she couldn't handle it alone, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and jumping. And jumping saved her life. Quiet courage is hard for a specific reason. It comes without witnesses. When you do something dramatically brave, when the world can see it, when it gets acknowledged, when someone says, "I saw what you did, and I'm proud of you." The courage is held by more than just you. The acknowledgement makes it feel real. It confirms that you did something hard. But when you make the quiet choice, when you go back to therapy, or say the honest thing, or leave the situation that isn't working, or simply get up and try again, you usually do it alone. You do not get a crowd. You do not get applause. You have only yourself to confirm that it mattered. And that requires a different kind of inner resource, a trust in your own perception, a willingness to do hard things without external validation, a belief, often uncertain, often wavering, that what you are doing is real and worthy, even when no one else can see it. That is the hardest thing about quiet courage. You have to be your own witness. There is also a second reason quiet courage is hard. And I think this one gets talked about even less. Quiet courage often does not feel like courage at the time. Dramatic courage has a feeling to it, a surge, a moment of decision you can recognize as significant while it is happening. Even if you are terrified, you know you are doing something, but quiet courage often feels like nothing much. Or worse, it feels like you are making a small, ordinary choice that barely matters. You send the email. You show up to the appointment. You say the thing quietly with a slightly shaking voice, and then you go make dinner. There is no feeling of triumph, no clarity that this was the brave moment. Only later, sometimes much later, do you see it for what it was. That means you often don't know, in the moment, whether you are being brave or just going through the motions. You don't have access to the future that will reveal it as meaningful. You have to act anyway. That is, in some ways, the truest form of courage there is. Not the courage that knows it's being courageous. The courage that acts simply because it seems like the right thing to do, and trusts that it was right, even without confirmation. The moon shines on cloudy nights too. You cannot see it from the ground. The clouds are thick. There is no visible light, but the moon is there, doing what it does, giving what it gives, even with no audience, even with no one to confirm that its light is real. Quiet courage is like that. It happens without an audience. It gives what it gives, even when no one is watching, even when no one can see. And it is just as real on the cloudy nights as on the clear ones. Here is something I have noticed about quiet courage. It compounds. Each small, private act of bravery makes the next one slightly more possible. Not because you become fearless. The fear does not go away. But you build a history with yourself, a record stored somewhere in your body of times when you were afraid and did the thing anyway. And that record becomes a resource. Priya, after her appointment with the doctor, did something she had been avoiding for years. She told one close friend what she had been dealing with. And then, a few months later, she had a conversation with her manager about adjusting her workload. And then, something she would never have believed she was capable of 3 years earlier. She began to talk about her anxiety openly with other people who needed to hear it, not because she stopped being afraid, but because she had built a history of doing the thing while afraid. Every quiet act of courage left a deposit. And over time, the deposits added up to something she could draw on. I want to ask you something. What acts of quiet courage have you shown this week, this month, this year? I suspect there are more than you think. And I suspect you have not been counting them. We are very good at counting our failures, at cataloging the moments we chickened out, backed down, chose the easier path. We replay those moments with clarity. But the quiet acts of bravery, the ones no one saw, the ones you did alone, the ones that looked small from the outside, those we tend to dismiss. Oh, that was nothing. Anyone would have done that. But not anyone. You did it. With fear in your chest and uncertainty in your mind. You did it anyway. That counts. So I want to invite you to do something unusual tonight. Think of one act of quiet courage from your recent life. Something small, maybe. Something that probably looked ordinary from the outside. But something that cost you something. That required you to move past a fear, to say something true, to choose something difficult. Hold it for a moment. Let it be real. Not, I should have done more. Not, it wasn't that big a deal. Just, I did that. It was hard. And I did it anyway. That is courage. Even if no one saw. Especially because no one saw. And I want to go a step further. Think about someone you love. Someone whose life you know something about. The things they struggle with. The fears they carry. The patterns they are working to change. Think of one small, brave thing they have done recently. Not a dramatic thing. A quiet one. The way they kept showing up to a difficult situation, week after week. The way they finally said the thing they had been swallowing for years. The way they chose to try something new, even though they were afraid. Now notice how easily you see it in them, how clearly you recognize it as courage, how naturally you want to tell them, that was hard. What you did mattered. I see it. We are so much better at witnessing courage in the people we love than in ourselves. And yet the standard is the same. The fear is just as real. The act is just as costly. If you can see it in them, clearly, without hesitation, you can learn to see it in yourself. It takes practice. It takes a deliberate decision to be a fair witness to your own life, to apply the same generosity to yourself that you naturally extend to the people you love. But it is worth the practice because you have been brave in ways you have not been counting, and those uncounted acts are part of who you are. I want to say something about a specific kind of quiet courage that I think is deeply undervalued: the courage of staying. We have a cultural story that says courage is always about moving, leaving the job, leaving the relationship, starting the new thing, taking the leap. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes the brave thing is to go, but sometimes the brave thing is to stay in the difficult conversation when everything in you wants to leave, to stay in a relationship that is going through something hard when you know it is worth the work, to stay with a feeling instead of immediately pushing it away, to stay present in your own life, not escaping into distraction or busyness or fantasy, but just being here in the difficulty of what this actually is. Priya had a period after she began getting help where she was tempted to quit. The work was harder than she had expected. Understanding the patterns of her anxiety, where they came from, how they ran, was uncomfortable in ways she hadn't prepared for. She stayed, not dramatically, not with certainty that it would be worth it. She stayed because she had decided, privately, that she owed it to herself to stay. That leaving because it was hard was not who she wanted to be. She told me later, staying was the bravest thing I did. Not starting, staying. And that took more quiet courage than almost anything else in her life. Dear friend, I want to say something I mean completely. You are braver than you know. I know you don't feel that way. Brave people in the stories we tell look a certain way. They don't hesitate. They don't doubt. They move forward with a clarity and certainty that you often don't feel. But that is not what courage looks like from the inside. From the inside, courage looks like, I am terrified, and I am going to do this anyway. You have done that many times, in ways that no one saw, in moments that no one applauded, in decisions that looked ordinary to everyone around you. I see them. The morning you got up, when everything in you wanted to stay down. The conversation you had when it would have been so much easier to stay silent. The help you asked for. The truth you told. The choice you made quietly, privately, alone, to move toward what was better for you, even when the outcome was uncertain. These things were not nothing. These things were everything. Your courage does not need a stage. It does not need witnesses or confirmation or applause. It is real. It is yours. And it is building something in you that will last. Keep going, quietly, bravely, one small act at a time, with so much admiration. Moon. 3 things before we close. Courage does not always look dramatic. The quietest acts of bravery, saying the true thing, asking for help, getting up again, trying again, require everything. And they count. Quiet courage is hard because it comes without witnesses. You have to be your own confirmation that what you did was real and hard and worthy. Trust your own perception. You know what it cost. And courage compounds. Every small act of bravery leaves a deposit in you. And over time, those deposits become the resource you draw on when the next hard thing arrives. Thank you for being here tonight. This is English with Moon. And tonight, I just want to say, whatever you have been quietly carrying, quietly facing, quietly doing, I see it, even if no one else does. Share this episode with someone who might need a reminder that their small, brave moments count. Since no one else may have witnessed it, tell me about a quietly brave thing you did, even a small one. I would be honored to be your witness. And come back next time. Until then, be quietly, stubbornly, beautifully brave. Good night, friends.